Hi, this is Tiffin Shoemake, Executive Director of RELA's Retail Compliance Center. Welcome to the third tutorial about assessments for the RELA Retail Advisor for Diversity and Inclusion. Today I'm going to cover what is an assessment, starting an assessment, and completing an assessment. Assessments form the core of the advisor, and they're based on the D&I leadership model, which is the framework for D&I program for retail. Based on the answers to the assessment, your program is placed on the model. The answers also trigger custom guidance and serve as a base for benchmarking. So let's get started. Now, once you log on, this exact screen that is shown depends on your user permissions and also where you are with assessments. So I'm going to add a new assessment. Only the organization manager can add an assessment, so if you're not the organization manager, you will not see this button. Now, when you add an assessment, it can be a new assessment or follow-up. A new assessment is the very first time that you've created one for your organization or a specific subsidiary. A follow-up assessment is just what it says. It's updating an existing assessment, and that way the system knows that you're updating the assessment and so can compare trends over time. In this case, I'm starting a new assessment, and I'm going to give it a name. This is for Ferret World. And a brief description. I'm going to go with all U.S. operations. The effective date is not the date that you're creating the assessment, it's the date that the assessment applies to. In this case, I want to have it apply to the entire year, so I'm starting at January 1st, 2020. The organization's roles and the roles of the different users related to the assessment, they're set in the collaboration function. So I'm going to go ahead and add this assessment. Now, the stage for each assessment is shown on the menu here. So the one I just added is a new assessment, indicating there's no information in there. These other two assessments are in the review stage, meaning that all of the questions have been answered, but I haven't set them to complete yet. So now I'm going to go back to Ferret World. Once I select an assessment, additional menu options show up on the left. And the questions, 0% have been answered, and I can start here. In this first section, the background, all I have here are the background questions related to my particular organization. So we look at the revenue. This information is used in the peer grouping and also generating the guidance. Next, an executive who's responsible for overseeing organizational D&I strategy. And so you just answer each question for that section. And you can see your progress across the top, and also on the side, it gives the % of questions that have been completed. Now, at this point, I could just save progress, but I want to save and finish, which is asking me then, do I want to advance to the next stage? Now, if I wanted to go back and correct a question, I wouldn't advance. But in this case, I'm going to advance. Now I'm at the questionnaire stage. My questions are back to 0 answered. However, I can always, using this little menu item up here, go back to a previous stage. So I can return to the background stage and change any questions that I wanted to. But I don't want to do that. I'm going to forward and go on to the questionnaire stage. At that point, I have another set of questions in these different areas that correspond to the leadership model. And for each one, depending on my answer, it places me on the model. And I can track my progress over here with what % of the questions I've completed. But at this point, I'm just going to save my progress and go back and look at a different assessment. And that's, I'm going to Cat and Kitten World. I'm at the review stage. So the review stage indicates that I've finished all of my questions, but I haven't set it to complete. Now, once I set it to complete, the answers are counted in the peer benchmarking, which is why I'm not doing that for this assessment, because I don't want it counted. So I'm going to cancel and not advance. So that's it. That's how you create a new assessment and fill it in and where the assessment stages for each one. So let's review. The assessments form the core of the advisor. The Add Assessment button is where you add a new assessment, but only the organization manager can do that. The stages of the assessment show where you are and how many of the questions have been completed, and that will change the menu along the side. Only your completed assessments are counted in the peer benchmarking, but you can see the results, the guidance and the results in the review stage. And the next tutorial will cover the guidance and the results from the assessments. If you want additional information or you have questions, here's some contacts for you. We'd be happy to answer your questions or walk you or your team through the advisor. So thank you, and now go ahead and finish your first assessment.